The storm had broken over downtown Atlanta before dawn, turning Peachtree Street into a glistening river of neon reflections. In a cramped studio on the city's south side, 25-year-old Marcus Carter jolted awake at the shriek of wind against cracked window panes. He had hardly slept. How could he, knowing that in a few hours he would sit for the interview that might lift him and his grandmother out of the cycle of contract work and overdue rent that had dogged them for years? Marcus was tall and wiry, a former high school sprinter whose lean frame still carried the memory of starting blocks. He moved quietly so as not to wake Grandma Odell, brewed a mug of bitter instant coffee, then laid out the navy suit he'd bought secondhand and altered himself. Even after 2 passes with the iron, the cuffs still puckered, but it was the best he owned. He slid his resume and a glowing recommendation from his computer science professor into a plastic sleeve, tucked everything into a weather-worn laptop bag, and whispered a promise to the silent apartment. Today's the day. Outside, street lamps hummed over puddles the color of rust. Marcus ducked beneath the awning of the bus stop just as a gust caught his bargain store umbrella and turned it inside out with a crack. He winced, wrestled the fragile spokes back into place, and boarded the MARTA bus with rain dripping from his collar. Every minute mattered. Kensington and Hayes Investments didn't tolerate late arrivals, and interviews for their junior software security program were rumored to run with military precision. At Arts Center Station, he transferred to the Red Line, claiming a seat by the window. The train rocked northward, wheels screeching like wounded metal. Across the aisle, a middle-aged white woman in a flawless ivory pantsuit tapped furiously on her phone, barking instructions that echoed through the carriage. "Tia, listen, 5 minutes early is already late. If legal isn't on that call at 8 sharp, heads will roll. Move." She snapped her phone shut with surgical finality and caught Marcus watching. Her ice blue eyes narrowed. He looked away quickly, anger heating his cheeks, but she said nothing, only smoothed a stray hair beneath a dangling earring shaped like the initials KH. The gold caught the fluorescent light in sharp flashes. Midtown blurred past in rain-streaked smears. Lightning forked beyond the skyline, momentarily bleaching the glass towers bone white. Marcus rehearsed answers in his head, project experience, leadership examples, favorite algorithms, trying to drown the inner voice that whispered, "You don't belong in those boardrooms." By the time the train hissed to a stop at Buckhead, that voice had almost faded. The doors slid open on a wall of wind. Marcus stepped onto the platform and into chaos. The storm had swollen into a deluge. Thunder rattled the concrete, and digital screens flickered with power surges. He fought clear of the crowd, raised his umbrella, and watched it explode backward again, spokes snapping like wishbones. With a rueful laugh, he tossed the wreck into a trash can and sprinted toward Peachtree Road. Taxis were scarce and expensive in this weather, but he spotted one inching up the curb, its roof light glowing amber. Hope surged, until the ivory-suited woman from the train shouldered past him and yanked open the cab's door. "Sorry, kid," she said, though her tone suggested zero remorse. "Some of us have places to be." Marcus stared as the cab splashed away, soaking his trousers in dirty spray. He muttered a curse, then jogged on, feet slipping on marble-smooth pavement. 2 blocks ahead loomed the frosted glass monolith of Kensington and Hayes Plaza, 80 floors of power and promise. He was soaked, breathless, 6 minutes behind schedule, but still in the game. Then he heard it, the dull whump of a tire blowout, followed by a frail gasp. On the shoulder of Lenox Parkway, a sleek pearl-white luxury sedan listed to one side, its rear wheel a shredded ruin. An elderly white woman, maybe 70, stood beside it clutching a jack that sank uselessly into streaming gutter water. Her silver hair clung to her cheeks. Her tailored coat was dark with rain. Passing drivers honked. A few slowed to stare, but none stopped. Marcus's pulse hammered. He had 5 minutes to cross the plaza, ride the elevators, and sign in. Help, and the interview was gone, forever. But the woman's hands trembled on the jack handle, and each lurch of traffic splashed her ankles with grimy runoff. He heard Grandma Odell's voice, low and steady. "Ain't no future in stepping on folks to climb higher, baby. You remember that?" With a groan, equal parts resignation and resolve, Marcus peeled off his suit jacket, slung his bag onto the curb, and jogged toward the sedan. "Ma'am, let me handle that," he said, kneeling. "You'll catch pneumonia out here." The woman blinked water from pale gray eyes. "Young man, you'll ruin your clothes. Go on before you're late to wherever you're headed." "Too late already," Marcus replied with a crooked grin. "Least I can do is make it count." He wedged a flat rock beneath the jack for traction, loosen lug nuts with practiced strength. Years of changing neighborhood flat tires for grocery money paid off, and swapped the spare in 9 damp minutes. When he finished, mud spattered his sleeves and oil streaked his palms, but the wheel sat firm. All set, he said, rising. Get inside and warm up. The woman reached into the car and produced a monogrammed silk handkerchief. She offered it, but Marcus shook his head. My name is Marcus Carter, he said instead. You be safe, miss. Eleanor, she supplied after a pause. Eleanor King. Pleasure, Miss King. He grabbed his bag, checked his ruined watch, and half laughed at the futility. 22 minutes late. Marcus, Eleanor called as he turned away. She fumbled in her pocket, produced a silver business card etched with only a name and number. If you ever need anything, you call me here. I insist. He accepted it out of politeness, tucked it beside his soggy resume, and jogged toward the skyscraper while thunder rolled like distant cannons. Inside Kensington and Hayes Plaza, the lobby glowed with alabaster walls and pendant lights like inverted flames. A marble staircase split around a kinetic water sculpture. Marcus dripped across the inlaid compass rose to the reception podium, where a young black man in a crimson blazer glanced up, brows knitting. Interview check-in closed 15 minutes ago. The concierge said, tone professional but cool. Name: Marcus Carter. Junior security engineer slot. He caught his breath. There was an emergency. The concierge scanned a tablet. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. Corporate policy is strict. Late candidates are disqualified. Marcus's shoulders sagged. He had known, but hearing it aloud hollowed him. Could you just let HR know I'm here? I can explain. The concierge's expression softened a fraction, but he shook his head. I'd lose my job. I'm truly sorry. Marcus nodded, murmured thanks, and turned. Through glass doors the storm still raged, but inside he felt oddly numb, as though rain were falling inside him now. On the sidewalk, he stared up at the tower's mirrored facade until sheets of water blurred it into an impressionist smear. Then he walked, no goal, just motion, past high-end boutiques and shuttered cafes until Buckhead's bustle gave way to residential streets. He found himself at a pocket park, collapsed onto a bench, and let exhaustion seep into every muscle. Lightning flashed. In its strobe he studied Eleanor King's card. No company logo, just a phone number and, beneath her name, 3 words, leave no kindness. Cryptic, probably old money eccentricity. He slipped it back into his bag. Night fell purple and raw. When Marcus finally returned to the studio, Grandma Odell sat crocheting by the heater, gospel humming from the radio. One look at his drenched suit and hollow eyes told her everything. It's okay, baby, she said, wrapping him in an afghan that smelled of lavender. Doors close so the right ones can open. Marcus wanted to believe her, but doubt not. While she brewed chamomile tea, he peeled off the suit, saw that his resume ink had bled into watercolor blotches, and dropped it into the trash. The business card fluttered out and onto the floor. He left it there. Please, don't forget to like and subscribe. That night, sleep came in shards. He kept seeing the icy businesswoman sneer, hearing the concierge's apology, feeling the jack handle biting his palm just before dawn his phone buzzed. Unknown caller. He almost ignored it, then thumbed accept. Mr. Carter? A woman's voice, calm, efficient. This is Karen Blakely, executive assistant to Miss Eleanor Kensington. Marcus sat bolt upright. To who? Miss Kensington requests your presence at 9 a.m. in her private office, top floor of Kensington and Hayes Plaza. She asked me to emphasize punctuality, but also said she'd understand if you needed a slightly later slot. Shall I confirm? Words tangled in Marcus's throat. Yes, I'll be there. He hung up, heart jackhammering. Eleanor King. Eleanor Kensington. Surely not. Could the soaked septuagenarian he'd rescued really be Eleanor Kensington, co-founder and co-CEO of the very firm that had rejected him? The notion seemed absurd, but Karen's call was real. He leapt into motion. The suit was ruined. He borrowed a crisp gray one from his college roommate Malik, rolled and pressed until it fit. He rewrote his resume at dawn's first light, printed it at a corner store, and polished his scuffed Oxfords until they glowed like storm water. Grandma Odell, eyes twinkling, slipped a scripture verse into his pocket. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap, if we do not give up. At 8:30 he stood again before Kensington and Hayes. The storm had passed. The building gleamed beneath unmarred sky. Inside, the concierge greeted him not with skepticism, but a respectful nod. Mr. Carter, Miss Kensington is expecting you. He handed Marcus an elevator pass embossed with a platinum KH. The executive elevator whooshed to the 80th floor. When the doors opened, Marcus stepped into a foyer lined with floor-to-ceiling windows and abstract canvases that hummed with color. A receptionist led him through double oak doors into an office the size of a small basketball court. Behind a walnut desk sat Eleanor Kensington, not the drenched, shivering woman of yesterday, but regal in a charcoal suit, silver hair sculpted, eyes bright. She rose with a warm smile. "Marcus Carter," she said, extending her hand. "I hoped you'd come." He shook it, bewildered. "Mississippi Kensington? I didn't realize who you were." That was the point. She gestured to a seating area by the windows overlooking the glittering sprawl of Atlanta. "Please." Marcus sat, hands clasped to still their tremor. Eleanor studied him a moment, then spoke. "Yesterday I was conducting an unannounced audit of our people, not our finances. I disguised myself and drove one of our less reliable fleet cars to see how strangers reacted to someone vulnerable." Her gaze softened. "You passed a test few even notice." Marcus managed a dry laugh. "I didn't pass the real test, the interview." "Ah," she said, eyes twinkling. "The interview panel answered to my COSO, Margaret Hayes. Miss Hayes values punctuality above all, sometimes to a fault. I, however, value character, something our company literature preaches, but our mid-level gatekeepers occasionally forget." Images flashed. The ivory-suited woman with the KH earrings, her contemptuous glance. Marcus blurted. "The lady who stole the cab. Was that Miss Hayes?" Eleanor's smile thinned. "Indeed." "Margaret didn't recognize me in the rain, either. We've worked together 35 years, yet she still underestimates my penchant for surprises." She folded her hands. "Yesterday revealed much about our culture. But let's talk about you." For 30 minutes, she questioned him about encryption protocols, distributed ledger vulnerabilities, and his senior thesis on quantum-resistant cryptography. Every so often she probed softer terrain. Why he coached after-school robotics, how he cared for his grandmother, what fairness meant in tech hiring. Marcus answered honestly, the usual interview bravado stripped away by exhaustion and awe. At last Eleanor rose. "Follow me." She led him through a glass corridor to a small conference room where Margaret Hayes herself sat surveying spreadsheets. The ivory-suited executive glanced up, surprise flickering to annoyance. "Eleanor, I'm in the middle of..." She stopped, recognizing Marcus. "You again?" "Yes, Miss Hayes," Eleanor said lightly. "Mr. Carter, perhaps you'd care to recap your contribution yesterday morning." Marcus hesitated, then described the tire change in terse sentences, omitting Margaret's taxi maneuver. Eleanor, however, supplied it. "Margaret commandeered your cab, I believe." Color flushed Margaret's cheeks. "I had no idea he was kind." Eleanor's voice was mild as snowfall. "Indeed, you didn't." She turned to Marcus. "I intend to offer you a position. Not junior security engineer. Chief ethical hacking apprentice, reporting directly to me. 6-month intensive rotation, salary commensurate with senior level." The room tilted. Marcus gripped the chair. Margaret sputtered. "Eleanor, our board will." "The board empowered us to find talent. Talent with conscience." Eleanor tapped her tablet. An offer letter glowed on the screen. "Marcus, will you accept?" He thought of Grandma Odell's rent notices, of mornings coding on a refurbished laptop, of lifting a stranger's burden, though it cost him everything. Tears blurred the sleek conference room. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes, I will." "Excellent." Eleanor extended a pen. Before he signed, he looked at Margaret Hayes, her expression a cocktail of resentment and reluctant respect. "Miss Hayes," he said softly, "for whatever it's worth, you taught me something too, that I can't let anyone's impatience define my worth." He signed. Eleanor beamed. Margaret stood, straightened her blazer, and offered her hand. "Welcome to Kensington and Hayes, Mr. Carter. Impress me." "I'll do my best," he replied. Hours later, after HR paperwork and a tour of the CyberOps floor, Marcus stepped onto Peachtree Street, bathed in late afternoon gold. He called Grandma Odell, voice trembling. "Nana, I got hired." By the CEO herself. Her whoop carried through traffic noise clear as church bells. "Told you, baby. Doors closed so the right one's open." As Marcus rode the red line home, city lights igniting beyond the windows, he opened his bag to slip Eleanor's silver card into a safe pocket and discovered a handwritten note no larger than a receipt. "Leave no kindness unpaid. EK." Beside the initials was an address in Southwest Atlanta, an underserved community center slated for closure due to funding cuts. Marcus smiled. A twist, another test, or simply a suggestion. Whatever the motive, he knew he would be there this weekend with open hands and code camp flyers. The train rattled south, and Marcus watched his reflection ripple across rain-speckled glass. A young black man in an ill-fitting borrowed suit, eyes alight with something money couldn't quantify. Opportunity, yes, but also proof that the quiet math of compassion could still balance the books of fate. And somewhere in an ivory office 60 stories up, Eleanor Kensington drafted a memo that would ripple through corporate corridors for months. A policy revision christened the Carter Clause, mandating that human decency, measured through acts unseen by resumes, weigh equal with GPA and punctuality in every future hire. Because sometimes the future turns on a spare tire, a storm, and the simple courage to kneel in the rain, while the clock keeps ticking and the world decides who it wants to become next.